we haven't said goodbye. Pretending life is wonderful. Pretending you and I. Why do we stay together? We can't wait forever. Ever's too late. Only heaven can wait. Waiting for love don't make it happen. And crying for love don't mean you care. Oh no. Only when love has ended can a heart be mended. If it's too late, only heaven can wait for love. Hey, family. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, family. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Mental House with me, your host, Khadija. I hope you are enjoying your day so far. Um, I certainly am. I just thought I'm enjoying a nice, good cup of coffee. In fact, it's about my third one, so I'm a little hyper. But what I wanted to do is I really, really wanted to um, leave you this bone of truth today, and that's for those of y'all who are going through relationship challenges. Are you right in between your tipping point and your breaking point, and you don't know what the difference is, but you know that you must end an abusive relationship? Let me say it again. Tipping points and breaking points. The moment you know you must end an abusive relationship. And this article is written by Dr. Tara Palmatier from A Shrink for Men. And this is a website that just helps people break free from abusive relationships, especially with borderline and psychopathic people, narcissistic people, high conflict. I don't really care about all these labels, but just when put it like this. You know how when you used to watch Bela Lugosi come down with his fingers up like that, and you know that he bites the person, the vampire, he bites the neck and he begins to suck the blood out of them, and they begin to become weak and weak. And then when he drains the blood out, they become him, another narcissist. It's very interesting how that metaphor works to me. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to read this article to you guys, and I hope it's not too long, but it's very important because a lot of people don't know the difference between a tipping point and a breaking point. So if you somewhere in between that spot right now, this message is for you. If you're the victim of a narcissistic or a borderline or a psychopathic or whatever abusive personality, you probably understand how a toxic and dysfunctional relationship is. And you know how dysfunctional and toxic your relationship is. But you still can't transition into ending the relationship and walking away. It's not that unusual. And there are many reasons for this. While abuse isn't a gender issue, as both sexes perpetrate nearly at equal rates, in my experience, male and female victims have different breaking points when it comes to ending the relationship. What's the difference between a tipping point and a breaking point, you may ask? A tipping point is when you finally admit to yourself that yes, your relationship is really that bad, and that yes, your spouse or your partner really is that fucked up. And then after which you formulate rationalizations to stay and excuses for the narcissist, perhaps blaming yourself. Then you might blame their ex-spouse or the family member, the family of origin. I'm sorry, and you might blame them for their deplorable behavior, or they were molested when they were a child. So you just blame all that for their deplorable behavior. Another tipping point is when you stop protecting and enabling your abuser and confide in a trusting friend, family member, or therapist what's been going on in your relationship. Admitting to yourself is a big step. Admitting it out loud to others is huge. It makes it more real in that it's out there now. And the people who care about you will hold you accountable if you possibly let them. Abuse flourishes in secrecy. Abusers will caution you about talking about them or the relationship, saying that they don't want anyone knowing their business. Yeah, you damn right they don't want anybody knowing their business. More like they don't want anyone knowing what they're really like in private. They also don't want anyone telling you how terribly they're treating you. They also don't want you telling anybody how terribly they're treating you. That's one of the reasons abusers do their best to isolate you. It's about controlling you and your reality and getting you to buy into their distorted and dishonest reality. They don't want any meddlesome third parties pointing out that the sky is blue, not chartreuse or whatever color it is in Nartania. What gets you to the tipping point, though? Usually it's a lot of little things. The proverbial death by 1,000 paper cuts. It often happens in moments of quiet self-reflection. The first tipping point in my relationship with my narcissistic ex occurred on a solo hike with my dogs last summer. We were together. I reflected upon a series of issues that were supposed to get better after specific points, like his rage episodes, his self-absorption, his selfishness, and his never-ending multiple and mushrooming civil lawsuits with employers, business partners, neighbors, etc. After reaching a point of financial security, after he healed from the abuse he claims to have, suffered, it was just one thing after. I decided, we should talk about that. For the first time on that hike, I admitted to myself that the issues weren't the issue. The issues were manifestations of what the underlying issue is, was, and always will be. His personality. Those things didn't happen to him. He created them, and they would likely never end. I quickly pushed away those realizations, and I started rationalizing again. I liked where I lived, especially when he went on extended business trips. We both made big life changes to be together. I can handle it. You know the drill. Blah, 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 blah. The second and final tipping point was when I finally admitted to a few friends what was going on. Namely, that he had been having an open affair with a mullet-haired, buck-toothed, bisexual former child actress. I swear I'm not making this up. And that his behavior toward me was becoming increasingly cruel, or rather crueler. They told me in no uncertain terms that I had to get out of that and offered me a place to stay. Still, I wavered. Then I told another friend, and she lobbied an accountability bomb on me by asking, well, what would you tell your client to do? At that point, I knew what I had to do, but I hadn't quite hit my breaking point yet. Breaking point is the proverbial last straw to break your damn back. I mean, example. For men, a breaking point is often when their narcissistic or borderline wife or girlfriend cheats on them. I work with men who are routinely bit, slapped, kicked, punched, scratched, and have their property destroyed by an abusive wife, and yet they stay. Even after there has been police involvement, including false allegations, sometimes that's still not enough for these men to give themselves permission to leave. But once she cheats, well, then it becomes a different story. While many women I work with will tolerate all of that, they will tolerate adultery, including even serial adultery. But their breaking point is physical violence. I am one of these women, so I too don't judge. Sometimes the breaking point occurs over something that is seemingly insignificant, but is one of degradation, humiliation, or exasperation. But it is one degradation, humiliation, and exasperation too many. Like the umpteenth time she sits across from you at the dinner table, ignoring you and Facebooking her friends on the phone. Or the umpteenth time that he throws a temper tantrum when a neighbor disagrees with him at the annual summer block party, and you feel so humiliated. Well, my breaking point unfolded as a 1, 2, 3 punch over a period of 2 weeks. Punch 1 was a psychotic rage episode he indulged in while trying to erect that year's Christmas tree. He sneered at me, delighting in how it would be the last Christmas tree he'd ever have since his affair partner was a non-Christian. Now, I'm not religious at all, so I'm not so sure what the point was except to inflict pain on me. Why was he so pissed? Because he had to get off his ass and put down the Facebook and help me after eating up a dinner I cooked and served him? As he raged, his face went from red to purple. His eyes was bulging out his head. I can't get it up. I can't get it up. I didn't know whether to laugh or lock myself in the bathroom. Punch 2 happened the next day. He was taking his mistress on a trip to Istanbul 3 days after we returned from Mexico, having lied to me about this Turkey trip for weeks. He tried to offer me some reassurance by saying that while he was no longer interested in having sex with me, I shouldn't worry. I was still fuckable, and he was surely that some other man would want to fuck me. Who says the narcissist doesn't have empathy? Still, I had 1 foot in denial and 1 foot in the bargaining in my head, jammed up in the backside of this misdirected self-blame. As far as codependency goes, at that moment, my life was a super trooper. The third and literal punch happened right after the night he returned from Turkey. I told him that I confided in friends what was going on, and I really wanted him to know that. And he punched me. Well, to be accurate, he sucker punched me while my back was turned. I like to think that if I seen it coming, I would have been able to bob or weave, but he didn't even allow me that courtesy. I was still in shock the next morning. I couldn't believe that he hit me. But then, why not? I was hanging in there for each and every other new treachery and humiliation that he had perpetrated against me. So why not that one? Yet, there I was. And did he have remorse? Did he offer a heartfelt apology? No and no. 8 hours after he sucker punched me, he sat happily in his chair across from his brother and me, watching the Cleveland Browns on the TV, chomping on a bagel, posting photos on Facebook that he'd taken from his Turkey trip, and yammering about how a magical trip it was. Of course, he didn't mention that he traveled with his mistress and had assaulted his girlfriend, just 8 hours before. You know what? That was it for me. Even at the height of all of my codependency glory, I couldn't rationalize or blame myself for that breathtakingly gratuitous bit of assholery. At a recent concert, the singer introduced the song You Never Loved Me by saying, have you ever known an asshole who's such a sick asshole that you're like, hats off? That didn't even hurt. Yeah, I do. I just didn't laugh. I took him to the airport the next day. En route, I brought up his assault. He smirked and asked, well, what did you expect? Fair point. As I was pretty sure that was a rhetorical question, I didn't bother to reply. What did I expect? He's shown me who the hell he was every step of the way. And because of my codependency, I fucking ignored it. And I just made excuses for it. Okay, so after dropping him off at the airport at the American Airlines terminal, where we first laid eyes on each other 7.5 years before, I returned home, hired professional movers to come the following day, and was gone by midnight. I understood that by leaving him on my terms would likely trigger a narcissistic rage to end all narcissistic rages. And of course, it did. He pounded out increasingly insane emails demanding that I sign a non-disclosure agreement and never to tell anyone about him and his mistress, demanding that I contact all my friends and family I told him about his betrayal and abuses, and then tell them that I had lied because I was under acute stress. He also wanted me to sign a document obligating me to pay both he and his mistress 2 years worth of their respective salaries if I spoke to anyone about them. I couldn't make this stuff up. The craziest email was over 12,000 words long, and it read like this. It read like it was written by a third world pot dictator with an advanced case of neurosyphilis dementia. Again, anticipating his rages and rampages and triangulation, I moved somewhere where I had never been before, where I knew no one, and rented a house sight unseen save for internet photos. Fortunately, I had the resources to do so. Think about how many people who don't. From the night I left, I went no contact, and I haven't looked back since. The only thing I regret is not having left sooner. But that couldn't happen until I had reached my breaking point. It just couldn't happen. If you don't leave once you've hit your breaking point, then you risk becoming irrevocably broken. I work with people who have gone past this point. Each time I think they've reached their bottom, they break new ground on subterranean depths. It is painful to bear witness to such needless, self-inflicted suffering. At that point, all I can do is remind them that they don't have to live their life this way, and that they do have choices. They may not like their choices, but they do have them. Why am I sharing this with you all? To illustrate, I understand how difficult it can be to really leave. Really, I do. I'm a cliche. One narcissistic parent, one codependent parent. I'm also sharing it to sparing you one of the worst humiliations and abuses yet to come, if you haven't left already. And that is to say, whatever your breaking point is. As much as it may scare you to contemplate ending this relationship, you can and you will heal. You can and you will move past it. However, you can only heal once you're out of that relationship. You can't get better while swallowing poison every single day. With enough time and enough distance, you may find yourself laughing about the absurd stuff that you experienced while residing in Nartania. And you may even find value in the pain that you suffered in terms of making healthier choices and not repeating the past ones, and also by helping others. Good stuff, Dr. T. All right. Dr. T is also the book of Say Goodbye to Crazy. Okay? And if you want a good reading, that is a very good book. So, again, I just wanted to touch base on you so you will know the moment that you must end an abusive relationship. The moment that you must. All right, y'all. With that being said, I'll see you next time right here in the Mental House. Bye-bye.